Hello friends, this is Luke, and I've had a couple of requests from several people for a little update on my aquarium. So since we're all stuck at home and trying to find things to keep us occupied, I thought I would give you a little video tour of what's going on in my tank. So this is a 75-gallon freshwater tank, and it's considered a planted tank because the main focus of this tank is to kind of create an aquatic biological ecosystem that's heavy on plants. So the whole tank looks like this, and there's a couple types of substrate I've got in here. The dark stuff that kind of looks like lava rock or something is called Eco-Complete, and that's kind of a neutral, balanced substrate that's it doesn't add a whole lot of fertilization or anything. It's just a good kind of neutralizer for the water quality. And then this lighter stuff that you see here, this is beach sand that I collected from the Oregon coast about 25 years ago, and I've had this in several of my tanks over the years. This came from a 5-gallon bucket I had out in my garage for years and years, and I pulled it out and boiled it and cleaned it up a little bit and threw it in this tank. I wanted to create kind of a nice dark and light balance throughout this tank. If you look back here, I kind of situated that light colored sand to look like sort of a river flow coming out of the background into this opening here. So that's the substrate. The rocks in my tank, this is called Dragonstone. It's imported from China. It's got a fairly high clay content, so it does dissolve a little bit over time, but I really like how porous it is. It's great. The invertebrates and the plants really like it. And it's fun to kind of shape it and move it around and get into some cool architectural arrangements within the tank. This crazy looking wood here is called manzanita, and it's a hardwood that's collected and sandblasted, and it's getting a nice dark brown sheen the longer it's been in my tank here. This tank's been set up for about a year and a half now, and it's fairly stable. I'm still dealing with some algae issues here and there. I don't know if you can see it right here, but that real stringy hair stuff, that's called hair algae. It's a filamentous stuff, and it grows like a weed. This stuff can grow, it seems like a foot in 24 hours. So, and it likes dead stuff, so it's always sticking to dead leaves. It likes to take over moss, kind of like bindweed in your garden. So I'm constantly pulling this stuff out. So anyway, besides the algae and the rocks, that's manzanita wood. Over here, I've got a big piece of Mopani hardwood. This is a wood from Africa, and I saw this piece in Petco just like 3 years ago, and it never sold, and it was there for a long time, and it kept calling to me. And finally, when I set up this tank, I said I need to put that specific piece of wood into my tank. So here it is. As you can tell, the algae really likes this kind of wood for some reason. I pull a lot of it out. I do leave a little bit in there because the shrimp seem to like to chew on it, and so do the snails. So, and having a tank without any algae is kind of a pipe dream. It's just kind of comes with the territory I've found. So I keep it controlled as much as I can, but I'm not going to fret if I'm always going to have algae in this tank, because I will. So anyway, so let's move around here. This is one of my favorite plants. This is called Pogostemon helferi, and Downoi is a specific subspecies of this. I started out with just one little clump that looked like that, and it was about a third of that size. For some reason, it really likes this tank. It's doing really well in here. As you can see, I've got some pretty big patches of it. It's kind of a mid-ground plant. It gets a little stringy and kind of reaches for the sky if it doesn't get enough light, but I've got some pretty powerful light going on up there, so it's doing really well and it's flourishing. And I got a couple chunks of that kind of throughout the tank. That's one of my favorite plants in here. my other favorite is, it's a African onion plant, and that's called Crinum calamastratum, and that's the one that's got these kind of long, snaky tendrils that are coming out. It does have a bulb like an onion plant, and everything I've read about calamastratum is that it's a slow-growing plant, but it's taking off in my tank. It's really beautiful. I like how it kind of just reaches around. It's got a really nice texture. There's a little, see if you can see it there, a little cherry shrimp that's climbing on it. The snails like it too. So I just kind of let it grow. It kind of moves with the waves. The algae does like it, so you'll see some chunks kind of sticking to that I've got to pull those off every now and then. Those are my two favorite plants. I was really envisioning, here's another piece of manzanita wood. I was really envisioning kind of having this moss kind of growing on the branches of the manzanita. I love moss. I'm not sure exactly what kind of moss this is. It's either Taiwan moss or it's called Christmas moss, but I think Christmas moss is a term that's used for a lot of different kinds of moss. So I don't know specifically, but it's growing well. It likes hanging on the manzanita. I do have it in a couple other spots in the tank. It can get a little unruly and out of control if I'm not tending to it, as you can see with this big chunk here. But when it's clinging to the branches, I think it looks great. Kind of looks like something from the south, you know, growing on some cypress trees or something like that. The big leaf plant that's growing in the back almost kind of looks like a house plant. That's called Temple compacta. Hygrophila coriumbosa, I believe is the name. That's a fast-growing, easy plant. It's a good plant for your first tank if you're just getting started. I'm a total newbie at this. I don't know all my scientific names. I don't really know completely what I'm doing, but so I picked that plant. It was a good one to start with too, and it's serving me well. It's growing really, really well. And that was a cheap one that I got from Petco for like $4, but it was well worth it. This kind of lettucey plant that's growing here is really flourishing too. You can see it going all the way up the tank. That's called water wisteria. It's similar to the Temple compacta. I think it's the same family. This is called Hygrophila deforma. Another easy to grow plant. Really likes the light. And as you can see, all the way down in the very back and the bottom, it's almost just barely sticking in the ground. It's just got a couple roots that are holding it in place. But most of the growth is in the water column. It gets most of its food from there, like a lot of these plants. So what else do we have here? Let's see. These are kind of fun. That's called a Marimo moss ball, and it's literally just a ball of living moss. I've got 3 of them in the tank. There's another one there. And when I bought these, they were kind of about the size of a whopper or a large marble, and they really grow and grow. And I just kind of roll them around the tank every once in a while to kind of change out where they are. They're pretty. They get a little dirty on the bottom. The shrimp love them, so they're always crawling on those. What else do we have? Probably my least favorite plant in the tank is called Java fern. I put it in here because it was one of the only plants I was familiar with before I did this tank, and so I put it in thinking, I know what I'm doing. But this is another epiphyte. It's a plant that gets its nutrients just from the water column, so it's grabbing onto the wood there, but it's not really, digging its roots in to get nutrition. Anyway, it's not doing very good in this tank. As you can see, a lot of the leaves are blackened or rotting. It sends out a lot of little starter plants, little shoots when it's not doing well, so I'm always plucking those out there. It's kind of a desperate last chance to stay alive. But it's not a very pretty plant in here, and I either don't have the technical capability to raise it and feed it correctly, or it's just not liking what's going on in this tank. So I'll probably just kind of let that wither and die, or if I get sick of looking at it, I'll just pull it out eventually. I got some more chunks back there kind of perched onto the dragonstone. Another one of my favorite plants, one of the first ones I put in here, This is down here. This is called Ludwigia. This is a needle leaf Ludwigia, and I've got two varieties of those. It's fairly slow growing. It sticks to the bottom pretty good. It's kind of growing out laterally. It's got these really nice slender leaves on it. I think it's a really pretty, kind of graceful looking plant. I got another slightly different variety kind of growing back there. I think you can kind of see it behind the pogostemen. And behind that, the plant with the reddish leaves, that's called a red melon sword. And I don't know a whole lot about sword plants. I know they're kind of a staple in planted aquariums. So I just popped one in, and it seems to be doing really, really well. It was about a third or a quarter of the size when I first planted it. I've only had it in there for maybe 6 months. So what else do we have in here? This big broadleaf plant here. This is, what is this one called? This is a cryptocorn, I believe. As you can see, I don't know all my names. Actually, no, this is an Anubias plant. I don't know a lot of my plants, but I'm kind of taking my best guess, or that's what the label said when I bought it. These are doing really good. These have, I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's kind of like what an iris has. It's kind of a big lateral sort of body to the plant that the leaves grow out of. There's another one back there that you can see. It's a different species, but these plants really like this tank. They're doing really well. For the most part, the algae is leaving them alone, so they're thriving. I don't clean this tank a whole lot or suck the fish poop and the detritus out of the bottom, because ultimately it converts to fertilizer for the plants. So it's not hands off, but I don't do a whole lot of cleaning just to kind of help supplement those plants. I think you've seen most of the plants in here. They're all doing well except for those Java ferns, and I'll probably get rid of those pretty soon. Here's another cool little plant. I just got a little chunk of it the last time I was in Portland, Oregon. These are rare plants. This is called Bucephalandra. It's very slow growing. See if I can get that to focus. It's doing well. It was about a third of the size when I first put it in here. These are small imported plants, very expensive, so you only get just a little tiny chunk of one of these when you buy them. But it likes lower light, so I kind of put it low in the water column, kind of half hidden by these rocks. It's doing really well. Once it really establishes itself and takes hold, it'll probably cover one of these rocks sort of like a ground cover. I think they're really pretty. Bucephalandra comes in a lot of different varieties, from really dark purple to bright red. There's some orange-leafed versions. This is kind of a more traditional one. This is called Godzilla Bus. I have a little chunk of red mini Bucephalandra in here that I planted, and it floated away, and I can't find it. So it's in here somewhere. One of these days I'll go digging for it, or if I don't, it's probably just establishing itself wherever it landed. So I kind of like to be a little hands-off with this tank and let nature do its thing. All these little white dots that you see on the wood, sometimes on the glass, I do clean those up sometimes. These are snail eggs, and these are the eggs that my nerite snails lay. They're beautiful little snails. That's one. Look at this snail actually had eggs laid on its shell from another one. I have zebra nerites, tiger nerites. They come in several different colors. Some of them, their shells have horns on them. They're really beautiful. There's a tiger nerite there that you can see. Sometimes they sit still for days on end and don't move and don't do anything, and other times they're very active, and then they're on the glass and moving around. So it's kind of a little treat when you see them. There's my, see if you can see him here, my little African dwarf frog. He's a survivor. I've had him or her for 1.5 years. He or she eats kind of whatever it finds. It's kind of a scavenger on the ground. I think he is supplementing his meal with a couple little baby shrimp now and then. But he just moves around. He'll go up, or she will go up to the surface of the water about every 4 to 5 minutes to catch a breath of air, and then comes down. I've read a lot about these that if they're well established and they're doing good, see, like just took a bite of something, that they'll chirp and croak at the surface of the water. But I've never heard this one make a sound, unfortunately. But kind of a little scuba diver moving around the tank. I like it a lot. The other reason I set up this planted tank is I've been fascinated with these Neocaridina shrimp. And these are little freshwater shrimp. I did a trade. I designed a logo for a shrimp distributor, shrimp farm that raises these, and he gave me a couple different varieties of shrimp to start with, some high quality ones that were like dark black and a glossy blue. They're really beautiful. Here's one of the blue ones. That's a offspring of one of the ones that he sent me. Sorry, I can't get that into focus there. There you go, you can kind of see it. So I have those, and I have some red cherry shrimp. You can see one there. They look like tiny little lobsters. They have interbred and created all kinds of shapes and patterns and colors. It's really cool to see. Shrimp breeders would be horrified by what I've done here by putting all these various versions of them into one tank, but I'm not a shrimp breeder. I just like seeing what they do. A lot of them have reverted back to their natural kind of light brown tan striped color. That's what they look like in the wild. But some of them still maintain that blue. Some are quite old here now. Some are 1.5 years, 2 years old. There's some that have some stripes on them. They're really beautiful. Just kind of endless varieties that are coming up. So there's one that's reverted back to its natural state. They kind of have that light colored stripe. Ugh, can't get that into view there. This big boy right behind, that is a totally different species of shrimp. I don't specifically know what it is. When I bought this one at Petco, they told me it was an Amano shrimp. Obviously it's not, because it's about 3 times the size of what Amano shrimp are supposed to be. And my closest guess is that this is a Singapore flower shrimp, and I've got 5 or 6 of those in the tank. They're pretty cool. You can see this one is just loaded down with eggs right now. From what I've read, a lot of people don't have success at raising these. I mean, they'll live a long time, a couple of years, but the eggs usually don't hatch unless they were laid in more of a salty, brackish, or briny water. I guess they need that for the shrimp to grow. So it has a big batch of eggs every now and then, and we'll lay them. I never see them. Probably the frog and the fish and the other shrimp eat those eggs, but they don't create new ones. There's a jet black shrimp on top of the moss there that you can see. That's kind of a pretty one. What else do we have in here? So this is kind of getting long, isn't it? I don't want to bore you guys. You'll see I do have some real Amano shrimp. These were kind of put to the forefront by Takashi Amano. He's a famous Japanese aquarist who sort of really brought this to the forefront, this idea of planted aquariums. And he passed away several years back, but the shrimp that he used a lot is named after him. I'll see if I can find one in here. Amano shrimp are one of the only shrimp that truly eat this hair algae and help it stay in control. I don't have enough Amano shrimp to really control my algae because they're quite expensive, and I think I've got like maybe 10 of them in here. And but I enjoy watching them. They're pretty cool. All these shrimp, all these different species of shrimp kind of have slightly different characteristics. Some are a little more aggressive than others. Some are kind of docile. It's pretty cool to watch them interact. I put some dried Indian almond leaves in here that they really like. They like to chew on those. They like to hide underneath them. There's an interesting one that's got kind of a clear coloration right in the middle of it, as you can see. The other thing that they like to eat, they're kind of bottom feeders, so they'll pretty much eat anything, but they really like this, as you can see this log here. Here's a better one. This is called cholla wood. It's a desert wood, kind of cactusy. It's got little spikes and stuff on it out in the wild. These are collected. They slowly rot over time, and they make really good food and hiding places for the shrimp. There's an Amano shrimp right there. They're a little more, there's a little more on the clear side. They're slightly bigger than my Neocaridina shrimp, and it's just kind of going about its business on the rock. So there's another one of those big flower shrimp that I got with an Amano shrimp right behind it. Lastly, I guess I can talk about the fish that are in here. I only have 2 species. So I've got, well, actually I've got 3. If you can see, this old thing looks like an old brook trout there. That is a zebra danio that was rescued from Marianne's classroom fish tank like 3 or 4 years ago. It's the last one living from that old tank. Poor thing, it's really just kind of a rescue, so I'll just let it live out the rest of its days here. The other 2 species of fish that I have in here were intentional. These kind of bigger tropicals with the beautiful orange stripe and the black back. These are one of my favorites. These are real similar to what's known as Raspera hets. They're pretty common fish in the tank. This one is a little different. It's similar species, but slightly different variation. These are called narrow wedge Rasperas, and I've got about 10 of those in the tank. They're a great schooling fish. They like to move around. They're pretty active in kind of the middle to upper part of the water column. I could just sit here and watch them for days. They lower your heart rate. It's really nice. The other type of fish I have are slightly smaller. See if we can get a good view of these. They have this beautiful, beautiful blue eye. I think you can see that on those. I had never seen these before until they were imported. I saw them in an aquarium store in Portland and just had to bring some home with me. So these are called emerald eye Rasperas, and they're just gorgeous. They're when the lights go out in this tank, they just you just see their eyes kind of flashing around the top surface of the water. So they're really pretty. And there are probably plants and algae and invertebrates and all kinds of other stuff that's growing in here that I didn't point out. I'm discovering new stuff all the time. It's crazy. I got 3 or 4 other varieties of snails in here, some unintentionally that have established themselves, probably rode in with the plants that I purchased. And so I just kind of let them be. There's bladder snails, ram's horn snails in here, a couple of those different kinds of narite snails. And that's pretty much it. So I'm just moving water around in here. I do add a little bit of supplemental liquid fertilization once a week to the water when I do a water change. I change out about 20% of this water once a week. And other than that, it's really minimal maintenance. It's got some air stones in there kind of circulating the water, so a couple of pumps that are kind of waving the water. You can see in the back there's a really nasty, disgusting filter that I really need to clean because it's full of algae. But that, just through gravity and siphon, sucks water out, and you can't really see it very well under here, but goes to a canister filter, runs through some filters. The other thing you see down there is a can of carbon dioxide, like a welder's bottle. So I do a little bit of supplemental CO2 that's added in line, and it comes out through that little glass thing. It's in line with the filter. So it's shooting a little carbon dioxide to feed the plants and to help the photosynthesis process, and in turn creates a little more oxygen in the water for the fish. So it's pretty balanced, nice ecosystem. Like I said, I have a ton more to learn about this, and I'm always discovering new things in here. So it will always be a work in progress, and I'm less concerned with the beauty and the aesthetics and getting this just picture perfect than just kind of letting stuff grow and see how things evolve in here. So thanks for going on this little tank tour with me. Hope it ate up a few minutes of your time, and if you want to see more of this or want to have some specific questions about this, I'm more than happy to share. Or lend a little of advice from things that I've learned from doing this, or if you're maybe interested in starting your own planted tank, would love to hear from you, and I'd be happy to help you out if I can. So, all right. Peace to you all. I hope you're all healthy and doing well. Take care.